Welcome to Navigating the Toggle Term, a guide for K-12 classroom and school leaders launch party. Thank you everyone for being here, and thank you Peter Lang, International Academic Publishers, for providing a platform for a book that we can use as a playbook to navigate where we are currently at in the present and future of education. Really, the purpose of today is for us to celebrate the book's launch, but also celebrate all of the contributing authors that are here that have written a lot of the book's case studies as well as the foreword to really have a conversation about where we're currently at in education, where we're currently at July 27th, 2021, before we jump into next school year after such an unpredictable ride over the 2020 and 2021 school year. So before we get started, just going over a bit of the book's content, the contributing authors, a few of the early reviews, and then some available retailers so that you can order that paperback and ebook. So if we look here, it's 12 full-length chapters. The goal of the book is to be research-based but practical, and it dives into a variety of different topics related to navigating the instructional models, organizational models, integrating ed tech, along with instructional strategies to amplify student learning, engaging students in families, differentiating instruction, social emotional learning, educator self-care, and optimizing professional development. And what's amazing is that we have educators from across the country. We have all corners of America in serving students in urban, suburban, and rural areas, as well as educators that are in the classroom, they're leading schools, or they're in higher education, teaching future teachers and school leaders. So it's a great perspective, and we have the case studies that really exemplify what's going on now in education, as well as really how we are implementing a lot of the research base in this book in classrooms today. So let's go over and really introduce these contributing authors that are here today. We have 13 case study contributing authors, as well as a contributing author for the foreword of the book, which introduces us and this project. And really, before I want the contributing authors to introduce themselves, is that just the Navigating the Toggle Term project really initially started when one of my mentors who wrote the foreword of this book, Dr. Belinda Carge, sent my doctoral cohort an email really at the beginning of the pandemic, and many of us had graduated already, and basically she wanted us to use a lot of, all the knowledge that we've gained on our experiences and especially our experience in the program of online and blended learning to create opportunities for students in the K-12 setting to, help them navigate this time, as well as, amplify their learning. So really it started there in March of 2020. And that really began my journey in writing my previous book and this book. And that's really, this book is a culmination of just that effort, as well as really developing my professional learning network, meeting many of you and learning from all of you. And it's been a great journey. So let's take this time to introduce the contributing case study authors. So we'll begin at the very top, and then we'll go down. So go ahead, Dr. Carge, get started.
Hi, everyone. I'm the coordinator of learning and instruction and a faculty in the doctoral program at Concordia University, Irvine. My area of expertise is research-based instructional strategies, and I've actually been a learner through this process alongside all of the teachers related to technology and integration, as most of my work previous to the last 4 years has actually been in face-to-face learning. So I appreciate Dr. Rhodes and all of you for what you have contributed as well. Thank you.
Good
Go
evening,
ahead.
everyone. My name is Jennifer Ingold, and I am an 8th grade social studies teacher at Bayshore Middle School on Long Island in New York. I've been teaching social studies at the middle level now for about 22 years, and last year I was fully remote. My chapter actually speaks to my experiences at the beginning of the school year and talks about the evolution of my journey using EdTech tools and applications. And really, it talks a lot about the challenge that we have in front of us to just make sure that we continue to evolve and what that looks like. So I was happy to share my experiences with everybody. Nice to be here tonight.
Hey everyone, I am Shannon Moore. I am currently working with new teachers at the district level, just made that switch recently and super excited about it. Previous to that, I was a high school English teacher and ed tech coach, and I've had the pleasure of meeting Matt through this project, and it's been a great honor to really meet him and enhance my PLN. My contribution to this text is largely about selecting ed tech tools in this COVID teaching world, this reality of toggling between traditional to hybrid to virtual and back. And so largely my section talks about really honing in on the tools and the learners and considering both in regards to pedagogy, highlighting specific areas of pedagogy that you'd like to really think about and utilize within the course of a unit of study. And then from there, choosing the ed tech tools that match those areas of pedagogy to the fullest. So really excited to contribute that and, always eager to talk about ed tech. So again, thank you, Matt, for the opportunity.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Esposito-Halbert. I have the great pleasure of actually working with Dr. Rhodes at San Marcos High School in San Marcos, California. I teach advanced placement world history and college prep world history with clusters of emerging bilingual learners. My case study discusses differentiation instruction using ed tech for all students. I have a wide range of students. Yeah, super grateful to be here.
Hi, I'm John McGuire. I'm a middle school special ed teacher. I was in an ELA classroom this past year. It was actually my first year in a classroom. Prior to that, I was a partner teacher with Miss Lowe, who you'll meet in a minute. And I just learned, I can't tell you how much I learned under her. We're in a middle school in the Bronx, and I learned so much from her. And through writing this, I used the special education, case management, and IEP meetings chapter. And through writing it, I learned a lot, actually. I like how Dr. Cargie said that she was a learner, and that's pretty much how I felt actually through this process. So thanks a lot. Good to be here.
Go ahead, Victoria.
Hi, I'm Victoria Lowe. I am a ELA teacher and coach and mentor in the Bronx in New York City. My content area is ELA. And my chapter was on navigating between the remote, hybrid, blended model and how we work through those different models that we had to go through, and bringing in the EdTech tools and bringing engagement in all three of those models, whatever the model was that we were in, but differentiating between the three models and what they look like. Thank you.
My name is Elisa Rhodes. I think I did that. Okay, I think that's better. Hi, I'm Elisa Rhodes. I'm his wife, and I had actually the privilege of kind of taking a step back when he was first writing this book, and was really excited that he allowed for me to be a part of this. I am an elementary school teacher. I've taught a lot of different places in San Diego County and have taught now grades 1 through 5. And so for me, I was able to provide a primary elementary aspect to the book, and to kind of show how to use different ed tech when using humanities, social studies, and ELA, and really incorporating that guided reading and how to put all of that into different ed tech, and also with project-based learning.
Okay, I think I'm up.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Darren.
Yeah, sure. I'm Dr. Darren Peppard. I am a 26-year veteran educator, and I've held pretty much every role that you can hold in education, having been a classroom teacher both at middle school and high school. Was a coach in various sports, assistant principal. I was a high school principal, and up until recently, through the last 4 years, and certainly through the pandemic, I was a school superintendent. So my area of expertise absolutely is in educational leadership. My research and my doctorate is focused on educational leadership, specifically around the paradigm between organizational management and instructional leadership. And so as I took a look at this particular project, and I'm thrilled again, Matt, for being included as a part of this. For me, it was really important to look at my section in chapter 10 around really 3 areas: communication, and how essential that was during the pandemic, and honestly, as it will continue to be. Stress management, and just the stress load that leaders were carrying. I know it's not unique to just leaders, but definitely that was the area that I focused on. And then just overall, how essential leadership was, and how much leadership mattered during this process. So congratulations, Matt, on getting this thing launched.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your perspective. It's great to have someone that's been through everything talk about, leadership in really challenging times. So your perspective was great to have in the book.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Jillian.
I'm muted, sorry. Hello, everyone. I am Jillian Dubois, and I am a second grade educator in sunny Clearwater, Florida. And I've been in education for about 22 years. This is my 22nd year going in. So I've done a little bit of everything from in the realm of elementary education. And my contribution actually had to do with the last chapter, and it was focused on self-care for educators. And that was something that I believe that we neglected over that full year and that full term when we were remote, because we were so concerned, right, with our students as well as ourselves, but we put our students first. So most of the time. So I really kind of focused on what I did for myself. And the first thing I mentioned was just that awareness. The awareness that we need the rest, the awareness that we need to set boundaries, the awareness that we need to let go of our perfectionism. We can overthink things, that's fine, but we have to let go of those unrealistic expectations that we put on ourselves. So that was a huge part of what I wrote about. And I honestly have seen tremendous not just with myself, but I've seen other people that have started just to kind of make that transition and to kind of understand really what self-care means.
Hi, I'm Ariel Adrian. I also contributed to the self-care chapter with Jillian, and I'm a middle school reading specialist. And I had the unique opportunity this year to teach 4th grade, and I've spent my career in secondary. So this was a very powerful and empowering and rewarding year for me. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity to contribute to a chapter that, like Jillian mentioned, I feel so passionate about, that we were lacking and can definitely learn from. My teacher narrative focused on self-care and prioritizing and putting yourself first and making sure, just like what we say with flight attendants, that they have to pull their oxygen mask on first, so do we. And I've really taken my self-care very seriously this year, and I've learned so much from being quarantined and hybrid and teaching something that I had no experience in, and shifting and changing and just recognizing that life will throw you obstacles, and how do we adapt to those and prioritize. So thank you, Matt, for having me as part of a contributing study, and I am very grateful to be here.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. And just the other contributing authors that couldn't be here today, we had Janet Ilko that wrote Student and Parent Engagement and Communication. We had Mark Brown talking about moving between online and hybrid. And then we had Rosalinda Alvalls talk a little bit about professional development and how she conducted professional development and learning during a toggle term. And then we also had Mark Urell, who talked about integrating instructional strategies. He flipped and flopped probably about 10 times the past school year between online and blended learning. So he really talks a lot about really incorporating PBL into any setting, which was quite amazing. So that's a really cool chapter to check out along with the main body of it. So let's talk a little bit about here's just some of the first reviews of the book. Really, it's supposed to be catered as a playbook. You have the chapters with the research and applications, and then you really had your case studies showing how to, what does that look like in action? What does that look like in that a little bit of that sample size? So that definitely was, that makes the book powerful. And I think that that's where it goes in the reviews. So really thankful for the reviews, and hopefully more continue to come in as more people read the book. And then what's amazing about this book is it's not only available in North America, but it's available throughout the world. Australia, Canada, the European Union. I just contacted someone in Pakistan, and he can purchase the book in paperback, which is amazing. And the toggle term represents what's happening across the world. It's not something that is just in North America. It's something that all educators, students, and families are working through. So really, this is geared towards helping the rest of the world as well as educators and students in North America. So let's spend a few minutes, about 15-20 minutes, having a short roundtable discussion about, I feel like, really pertinent issues in education as we move forward into this next school year and beyond, because last year was so unpredictable, but as we know now, who knows what it will look like moving forward. So, and that's not only here in North America, but across the world, as we know that conditions are ever changing in our times. So our first question is, are the major innovations over the past 16 months related to integrating instructional strategies with EdTech here to stay? And then with that in mind, what challenges and future innovations do you see moving forward? And I believe Dr. Karg, you wanted to go with that question, or who wanted to go with that question?
I can too.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Jillian, go first.
This is totally not my area of expertise, which I wanted to answer. I love, because I know Shannon, you're the queen, and but I have never been so comfortable using technology as I have over the past year. So I am super excited that we had the opportunity. I want to say that was a good thing that came out of everything that we've been through. I think the innovations have been incredibly. I think that not only have we've been able to open our minds and our hearts to new things, but we've also been able to walk the students through and guide them through the learning process of how to do all this too. And if anything, they're a little more confident than even the educators are. So I know my students are second graders, but they taught me a lot last year. So I can't wait. Like, I'm ready to go back to school. I cannot wait because I know exactly the tools I'm going to use, not just for classroom activities, but also for communicating with students and families.
Go ahead, and if anyone wants to chime in.
I'll go ahead and piggyback kind of on what Jillian was saying. I wholeheartely agree. And I think that was the beauty of over the last 16 months was this idea that, teachers rose to the challenge. There was no, like they always say, it's so cliche now, but there was no playbook, right? And until now, navigating the toggle term. But, there was no playbook and people jumped on board and really figured it out themselves. And I think that kind of goes with exactly what Jillian said. That kind of goes with question number 2 that you posed, Matt, that idea of what challenges and future innovations do you see moving forward? And I think it really truly comes down to culture shifts. And I think that fits both of those kind of points, the challenge and the future innovation. When educators are, striving to integrate technology in a way that enhances or amplifies their learning, there are going to be teachers there who maybe reject that just a little bit because it does require a lot more work, or it is a little bit challenging or out of their wheelhouse. And so ultimately, if schools and districts want to see that shift become the norm, which should be the expectation because educators everywhere have proven that it works, and it helps amplify learning for their learners, then I think that culture shift is going to fall on not only the administration or the leaders, but it's also going to fall on, every single educator to rise to the challenge and say, I am a leader. I can press forward. Our PLN, our PLCs can do this together. But that does require a culture shift because I think for so long individuals were, content kind of operating in silos. But if something was illuminated, it's a really lonely kind of task if you are going to do this by yourself. So with that, I think that is the challenge. And then also, I think just look across Edu Twitter and see all of the innovation that has come out of individuals saying, cool, I like this EdTech tool. Let's try and use it a different way, right? And so all of a sudden you have individuals really pushing themselves to embrace Flipgrid and Padlet and, the basic Google Workspace or Microsoft Workspace. And it's just fantastic when you get a passionate group of people together pursuing, the same vision. And I think I agree, Jillian. I think EdTech and instructional, integrating that with instructional strategies is here to stay, and it can be a beautiful thing. And I'm excited for continue to watch that shift.
And I agree. I think a lot of it's going to stay mainly because now they're kind of going on about being a leader. People now know what works, and we're no longer grasping for whatever I can find, but instead we're going to have this bank of things that I know worked. Here's why, and really being able to focus on things that were beneficial to students and not just throwing something in there because they want to add technology. But instead, we're going to now have these amazing programs and things that people already have created that we can build onto and improve. I'm going to share my mic.
All right, awesome. Yeah, those were just some great insights there. And I do hope that, I know that in some places we'll have that pushback, but hopefully, with that pushback, we'll be able to spring forward with some of these innovations so that they will maintain and they'll innovate even further. So I think, for the first little bit of this year and maybe even this school year, there'll be some pushback and we'll spring back a bit. But I think Pandora's box has been opened. So that means I think that, I think that the wave has started, and I think that hopefully, we'll see, innovations and more integrations moving forward. So let's talk about the second question, and really, how has teaching and leading the past 16 months shaped you as an educator? how have these experiences prepared you to navigate the toggle term as we progress in the future, as thinking about, what were the events, what were the experiences, and what were the things that you learned that really helped shape you through this? And how can we project that going forward?
I'll start off. For me, it turned me back into a learner. I thought I was a learner, but I was in my classroom, I was in my school building and in my district, and I happened to be in the largest district in the country, but it didn't matter. I wasn't a global learner. I wasn't part of this global education movement. And so that opened my eyes to what was going on out there. And now I could really jump on as a learner and be open to all these new things and bring that into my classroom, and also have my students become global citizens. We're no longer just in our own little classroom, in our own little school, and that's our world. There's a whole world out there, and being able to open it up to them and be learners together in this journey. And as a result of that, I just took in all of this and changed shifted my mind, everything towards teaching and education and learning and leading. But just being open to learning and now to be part of this global education movement, because I just couldn't see outside of my school, couldn't see outside of my district. But now I can, and so can my students. We're global citizens now, global learners.
To jump in and add to that, one of the first things that we learn when we're becoming teachers is to understand the kids and their needs and their circumstances and how they're all different. But that was shown even more this past year. I spent most of the year on Zoom, and I had to respond to these inequities in a bunch of different ways. Now, I teach AP classes and I also teach English language learners. And I always focused on personalized learning. I always did small group instruction, but I had to push it to the next level this year to make sure that I hit every single student and made sure I gave every single kid what they needed online. And it made me so much better. And I was able to, get to know my students even more, even though sometimes I couldn't see them or what was going on around them. And I plan to bring that into my next year, hopefully not on Zoom, and with them, and really pushing that small group instruction even more.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's been a huge trend of, really focusing and personalizing learning for students. And I think that a lot of us has really taken that to heart, and hopefully that continues. Jennifer, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Well, actually, I was just listening to Victoria and Elizabeth, and they really bring up something that's so important. And I think that one of the biggest challenges and anxieties moving forward with this entire process is how. In education, we're always talking a lot about our why, why we do this, and it's always important for us to know our why. But I think this last year has showed us that our how, how we do something and how we approach doing it really is just as important as why we do it. And so listening to both of them talk about how they approach the challenge and how they approach that with their students, and teaching their students how to be a better learner. Like Elizabeth talked about how it was a challenge for her to reach all of her students online, but she had to reteach her students how to learn, how to be students online. And I think that that's a huge anxiety and a huge challenge for many educators going forward. I know a year ago, talking to educators, whether it was in my school building or just around the country, one of the biggest anxieties I heard was, is it possible to really create organic and authentic, relationships with students online over a computer while still nurturing their social emotional needs? And most people were like, that's not possible, And when I was approached to be the remote teacher in my building, I just, the whole thing was just really a tough sell. But I think, listening to Victoria talk about too, well, both of them really, pushing the limits, us testing our limits and showing that we can evolve, this can be done because we did it. And we feel very capable and comfortable now doing that. And the fact that we're able to share that with others, I think that will help hopefully others to feel a little bit more confident and for them to be able to transfer that confidence to their students, feeling comfortable moving forward, that this is an environment that we all can evolve and exist in, and giving everybody the confidence that they need to be able to move forward with it.
Yeah, no, I think that this year's taught us that we can be empowered in what we're doing because we did a lot of great things. I think everyone can say that they've had, even through a very challenging time, there's a lot of breakthroughs in terms of our instruction, in terms of nurturing relationships, and I really think that a number of you guys hit on is social emotional learning, and something that was talked about before the past 16 months, but it's now become mainstream, and that's something that I think that we can all be really proud of, as well as just amplifying our instruction with the technology that we have. So great things were said there. So let's move on to question number 3, and that really relates to is, after such an unpredictable school year, how can we best support teachers, students, and leaders? What do you think should be the top 2 or 3 areas of focus, and why? How can we prepare to do the work that's needed of us? Go ahead, Darren. You can start us off.
Yeah, for sure. I'll go ahead and I'll jump in. I think unpredictable might be the understatement of the century. But I think one of the biggest things, and I think this is true with all of our educators and with our students, as far as how best to support them, it starts with, let's not overwhelm them. I think as all of our staff, not just our teachers, but everybody starts to come back into the buildings, whether it's their first time back in or they're just coming back, from last school year. What we need to be very careful of is not inundating them with new initiatives and additional things to put on their plate. I think right now, they have a lot of things that they have to process from the last 16 months, and we need to give them the time and the space to be able to do that. So I think not overwhelming them. From the student side, I'll be honest with you, and maybe I'm in the minority. I don't think I am, but I'm tired of hearing about learning loss. Nobody lost anything as far as learning. They learned something different than what we normally would have done, but they learned a lot of grit and a lot of perseverance. And I'm sorry, I could preach for an hour on the learning loss thing. I'm sick and tired of hearing that. So let's not overwhelm kids with, we have to catch you up, because we don't. We just need to meet them where they are, like we're supposed to do every year. So again, I'm getting on a soapbox. I think that, as far as areas for us to focus on, the top 2 or 3 areas, I think it's really critical that we focus on coaching, really coaching our educators. Throughout the course of this call, we've talked about all these great things that have happened and how people want to continue to utilize some of these tools and techniques and methods to help students learn. We've got to give them the time. We got to listen to them and really give quality feedback to help them continue to grow. I think the second one, Matt, you talked about SEL, and I know SEL has become a buzzword. I'm going to take it back to culture, because SEL and culture really go hand in hand. And if we're not focusing on really building those cultures of inclusion and those spaces for our learners, where, and not just our learners, but our educators too, where everybody feels like they're seen and they're heard and they're loved and they're part of something special, man, if we can't do that, it just doesn't matter where we go. And then the last one I would say is, man, and this is a big leadership piece, we have to regain control of the narrative. The narrative about education has become a political football, and we have to take it back. We have to tell our stories, and we really have to do our best to remind people just how good we are at what we do and the amazing results that happen. So as far as how can we prepare to do this? Hey, we're all in this together. We've got to work together. We've got to collaborate. We've got to be clear as leaders with everybody. What are our goals and how we're going to achieve those things? So that's a bit of a rant, but I kept it as short as I could. That's my thoughts on question 3.
After an unpredictable school year, I believe that we can best support these servant teacher leaders and their students by being mindful of the challenge that they've been through and give them a little grace. And as was previously shared, I think it's important to allow them time to kind of float their wings and see how they settle into the new school year and be there for them. I also believe that it's really important to focus on what the research tells us. You know, the tech literature has really grown. If you look in the journal, professional journals and blogs and foundation guides, everybody's out there writing about what worked. And so let's take a look at that. Let's give teachers the opportunity to continue to use this technology in the classroom. Let's give them the chance to keep experimenting and to really look at the research and say, hey, you know, if this worked in this part of the world, maybe it'll work in this part of the world as well. And as Dr. Rhodes said in his very introduction of the book, these truly are the heroes around the world. And we know that these teachers, that every teacher in the world has the opportunity to impact students. So let's allow them to face that challenge and to live up to that challenge without criticism.
I think that everything that was said is so powerful and important for us to think about, that we were thrown into this unpredictable year where we had to reach students in so many different ways. And what guided me so much this year was mentorship. And I think that, like Darren said, supporting different teachers in different settings and building on culture, it's not just social emotional learning anymore. And it's what we do with our students, we should be sharing with one another. I've learned so much from people that live thousands of miles away from me. And the mentorship that I've received and that I strive to give back is something that I think is really important for us to focus on in a more brick and mortar setting or hybrid or toggled wherever we go in the future, because I learned so much through a screen from people and I would love to continue doing that. I don't want this to go on a halt just because we're back in buildings. So I think preparing for the work that's ahead of us, we shouldn't forget the good and the silver linings that came out of this year too. There was a lot of bad and there's no denying that, but there was a lot of innovation and creativity and friendships and just growth that came out of what we've done as educators and what we can just do as people over the past year and into the future, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, so many amazing things said here. I hope that just for those that are listening to this, as I'm sure as everyone else here, is that, that was motivating and inspiring and empowering. So let's move to, as we finalize our conversation here, I want to give everyone the opportunity to have some, final remarks. I know that we talked a lot in the last 15 minutes about things related to navigating this time in education, but I wanted to give everyone the opportunity to give about 30 seconds of what advice would you give to classroom and school leaders as they navigate the future, and what can they best do to move forward. So I'm going to keep this open and, we'll try and get, I want to have everyone try and say something for about 30 seconds. So whoever wants to chime in and go first, and then go ahead.
Yeah, I'll start it off. I was, as a first year teacher, I got more advice than I could handle, but I basically tried to take as much as I could, and a lot of the advice that I got, I used, and it worked for me for a good part of it. Was just don't try to be something that you're not. Like if you're having trouble with technology or if whatever it is, just be authentic and be who you are. And that's okay. Right. Like, so I also was told that like students don't learn from teachers they don't like. But I think more than that, they can tell if you're being inauthentic. So that's something that's probably that they're not going to appreciate even more than not liking you. But Yeah, just I would say that, and to stick with it, and just to be available for the students. That's for classroom leaders, and then for administration, I would just say, to kind of just make sure that your teachers are okay, and that self-care chapters that you talk about in the book. I feel like that was a big thing this year.
Mm-hmm.
But also, and then moving forward, I think that I honestly like what Darren was saying. Like I feel like we're on the right path, and just to kind of continue this path of learning, and then passing down what we're learning here. So, thanks.
Okay, well, I'm going to jump in on what John said, because so much of what he said was things that I was thinking about. I mean, I had written down, be open, be honest, be accessible. And I love the fact that he talked about being authentic. Being a history teacher, I talk a lot about, history. And with history, it's always usually about, the facts, right? We learn all about the facts. But there's always two sides to every story. Sometimes they're the good guys and the bad guys, but in between all of that, there's also the perspective that's human. So I think my biggest piece of advice would always be to be a human first, because lots of times what the history books leave out is the humanitarian perspective of what goes on in history. And that humanitarian perspective is something that's shared by everybody. It's shared by our kids. It's shared by our colleagues. It's shared by, we share it with each other, and it's shared with everybody all around the world. And so those experiences, those feelings are something that brings us all together and connects us. And so I would just say, always remember to be a human first, and then everything else usually takes care of itself.
Jumping right on into that. The whole human thing, that was incredible. I think the whole giving, I know something that I've heard, and I was kind of getting sick of hearing it, the whole idea of grace, give them grace, but we got to continue that. As much as this year was unpredictable, we have to continue that idea of grace going on into the future, because I don't want people to start heading backwards into what we used to do because we're going into the comforts of our classroom and students coming back. But instead, let's continue the momentum of everything we've been creating and making sure that we use technology and ed tech, not just for consumption anymore. We were able to do such amazing things with it this year because we were forced to. But now we have the chance to want to do it, and to have the chance to even make it better now, because we'll be there to support the kids. We're not going to have to hopefully have so many Wi-Fi issues, or dealings of the housing, or here we would have the power go out, but instead it's using this technology and really having the chance to use it in the classroom and make it incredible for our students throughout the next 2 years.
For final remarks, I would like to say that it's a reminder to all of us, the reason we're here. One innovative high school teacher, Dr. Rhodes, began remote learning with determination to meet individual needs and to focus on instruction digitally. He just read everything he could. He experimented with strategies and techniques.
Mm-hmm.
He looked to the research and just said, hey, what can I do better? And he wrote about it. And then he reached out to everybody here on this call and said, what do you have to offer? And was a learner himself in learning from each person as they wrote their case study. And I think for final advice, I would say each one of us needs to dig deep and be that type of learner as well, and to continue to model learning for the classroom so our students see us as learners. It'll entice them to want to continue.
Yeah, that was so well said, thinking about our growth and what we share with our students, because the advice I would give is never say never, because there's so much that we limit ourselves to. And there's so much that we said, where that I was guilty of saying pre-pandemic, oh, I would never do that, or I could never do that. And this year has definitely taught us that there will be situations where you can't say never because you don't know what's coming up. So this is great for us to practice as educators and be as role models to our students, that there are times in life where you have to shift and adapt and change and be versatile and flexible. And I watched so many senior teachers this year, experienced veteran teachers who were amazing in the classroom, but really struggled with technology, now become these bosses with technology, amazing, teaching other people and sharing and making these amazing interactive ways for us to learn. And I had a major change this year. I said I would never teach elementary, and I did, and it was extremely rewarding. So the advice I would give to anyone is be very open-minded, because you don't know where your life can lead you, because we're all here over a Zoom screen, which I bet a couple of years ago, we never thought we ever could have met. It would have been like, oh, I have an online friend. I guess I'll see him at a conference.
After listening to all of these very inspiring people, I was trying to think of advice that I would give to a teacher for next year. And I think for me, this past year was so difficult. And sometimes, I teach at a school with 4,000 students, with hundreds of teachers. And sometimes I can feel a little alone, especially in my style and the way that I do things. And so my advice would be to really find your community within your school site. I feel so lucky because, I've become friends with Matt Rhodes, who works with me, who has very similar mindsets that I do. And I've also, this year especially, since it was so difficult, a lot of teachers were really looking for their communities and looking for those people that they can hold on to in times of stress, and when they needed those people to inspire them. So that's what I would advise, is go find your people.
Thank you. I'll go next. And I'm so glad you said that. And everyone, I totally agree with what everyone said. And the grace, it's just stuck with me. But I didn't do the chapter on self-care. I need to read that chapter. But self-care is so important. And when we talk about grace, it's not just for the students, it's for the teachers. I was remote for a good part of the year, and it took a lot to go back. And so I got to experience early by coming in the summer about what it takes to go back, and self-care is needed, grace, and just having a safe space for people to really talk about the feelings that they're going back into the building for students and for teachers. So safe space, a community is needed for that. Thank you.
So I'll pick up. So at one point in my career, somebody mentioned, they told me, it's hard to breathe life into your dreams when you're choking on excuses. And maybe I'm going to come in with a harsh advice, but I think what happened for a lot of educators this year is a lot of blame for all of the things that were going wrong. And unfortunately, I believe that held a lot of us back from taking risks in our classroom, really promoting our professional growth moving forward. And so, it's easy to blame everything else. It's easy to, focus in on the struggle. But like Ariel said earlier, there was a lot of good that came out of it. And I think when we get out of our own way and stop limiting ourselves by our own limitations, then I think we can start to see ourselves thrive, our colleagues thrive, our communities thrive, and our students thrive. And so my advice would be, as we go through this next wave of whatever education is going to look like, because we have no idea. We're all very optimistic that it's going to be back to whatever that new normal is. But the reality is it could shift on a dime, like at any moment. And so it's time to stop making excuses and start to passionately pursue, the visions and of what we set for our future. So that would be my advice to y'all.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jillian. I believe you haven't gone yet.
I have not. So I think what all of this boils down to, I know for me and for my looking forward, is relationships. about just going ahead and building that solid foundation with your students, with their families. I'm a big proponent of communicating with families. I don't give up. If I don't hear back from them, I keep going and going. I want them to know that I'm on their side. I'm a partner with their student, and I want them to succeed and to be just as successful as they possibly can with our partnership. So I think just building those foundational relationships is one thing that just helps, not only us as educators, but helps our students be able to navigate these uncharted waters that we're going through. They don't know what to expect every year. They're going to be walking in the next few weeks going, I don't know what to do. You're going to have to lead me. And we're going to do it. We're going to get through it, and we're going to do it.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. Darren, go ahead and finalize this.
All right, I've got the anchor spot. I love that. Man, so much great advice from this just incredible group of educators. I think if I can build on it just a little bit, which is difficult because there's some incredible thoughts. I would say as we begin to launch into this next school year, we know we have to have a quality plan, and we know we have to be real clear about what we want to do. We've got to be real patient. We may very well want to see results in, closing gaps, or, seeing incredible changes in what was happening online now happening in brick and mortar. We really need to be patient, and that's classroom teachers, that's administrators, that's parents. We really do have to be patient. But at the same time, we have to be deliberate. We have to really have a plan and work our plan. The second thing I would say that I think is really essential for all of us, and is real critical advice, is we really have to be good listeners, and not just listen to respond. One of the biggest faults we have as human beings is we listen to give the next response. And we just really need to listen to hear each other. It's probably one of the most important things that each and every one of us needs right now as we move forward. As far as navigating the toggle term as we move forward, it was said quite a few times, and I love how Elizabeth said it. And, you really got to find your people. You found your people as you went through this process. Lean on the same group. You don't need to change your group. You don't need to find different resources. You have an incredible group of resources, an incredible collaborative, group. I can't come up with a better word. I apologize. But just continue to lean on the folks that have gotten you through and have supported you through this process. You're going to pick up other hitchhikers as you go, and I think that's a good thing. But just continue to work collaboratively. We're all in this together, and we're all doing this on behalf of kids. So I guess that would be my advice.
Yeah, so many great pieces of advice, so much experience here that, is tantamount in us moving forward. And, just the biggest things that I can feel like I took away from this conversation, my final remarks before we finalize this call, is that we have to have grace, we need to be listeners, you have to have learners, have your community, and be there for each other and be human, and show that in front of your colleagues and show that with your students, and build those relationships from that point. So, it's a beautiful conversation and just so much good information here that I hope, everyone listening to this can take as, much as they can to their school site and their district. But also, I think just when we finalize this, is that think less is more. No one's gonna be perfect in this. I know that I haven't been perfect, and just take a few things here and there and just incorporate them slowly and be patient. And with that patience, over time, you're gonna see the fruits of that come to being. So just want to thank you everyone for being here. Thank you to our listeners. For more information, you can check out my website at matthewrhodes.com, and you can go to the Peter Lang website to learn more about this book. Excited for the future, and I hope that moving forward that you can navigate the present and future of education.